Hey book nerds, welcome to my channel. So Thriller-a-thon is almost upon us, which I am so excited for. I cannot wait to take part. And I thought in honour of that I would do a little kind of rundown of the thrillers on my TBR that I am most anticipating. So this is going to be like a top 10 most excited for thrillers. These aren't in any particular order, so it's not like it goes from least excited to most excited or anything like that. They're just kind of dotted down randomly. So the first one I'm going to talk about is 6 Stories by Matt Wesolowski. This is about a podcast. It's like a crime podcast, and there's a guy, Scott, who runs the podcast. And years ago, this man called Tom Jeffries, I think he was a teenager, died under mysterious circumstances. So Scott interviews 6 people who knew Tom or were around at his time of death to try and find out what happened, and like each interview reveals more about what actually happened. This sounds so interesting. The format of this sounds great. It reminds me of 5 Little Pigs by Agatha Christie, which is one of my absolute favourites, where you get loads of different perspectives on a horrible event that happened, and you have to work out which parts are the unreliable narrator of a specific character, which parts are what actually happened, and I love all that stuff, so that sounds fantastic. I've heard really good reviews of this one as well. And yeah, just a lot of good stuff going on. My second most anticipated one is 10 Little Girls by Willow Rose. This could go either way, I'm going to be honest with you. So this is about, there's a school, and from this school 10 girls get abducted on the same day. And the parents start receiving letters which follow the format of the poem 10 Little Soldier Boys. There's a lot of different names for the poem, so you might know it under more problematic names, but I'm going to call it 10 Little Soldier Boys. So they get letters saying things that are happening to their daughters, and it's kind of a race against time to find them before the horrible things in the letters happen. The reason I'm so interested in this is because I absolutely love And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. I promise I'm not going to just be talking about Agatha Christie in this video, by the way. It just so happens that I put these two together and they both remind me of Agatha Christie, which is why I want to read them. But And Then There Were None also uses the poem 10 Little Soldier Boys in quite a significant way. So I'm intrigued to see whether this is kind of a rip-off of that, or whether it can stand on its own and it's actually a really good thriller. But I couldn't not want to read it, since it shares something in common with my favourite book of all time, and I just hope it doesn't end up being a rip-off. My third most anticipated thriller is Painkiller by N.J. Fountain. This is about a girl called Monica, and she has chronic pain, and then one day she finds a suicide note in her house that's written in her own handwriting, and she basically starts worrying that someone's trying to kill her. Sounds like there's a lot of mind games going on. I was already super excited to read this book because I think it's a really interesting concept. And then I heard Anna Francesca give it a really glowing review. I'll link her channel down below, but she suffers from chronic pain, I believe, and it kind of made me more excited to read it. A, hearing a glowing review about it, but B, also knowing that the way it deals with chronic pain is good representation, because I've had a friend who suffers from chronic pain, and I know what it's like from their experiences. I've also studied it as part of my psychology degree, so while obviously I don't suffer myself and I don't consider myself an expert or whatever, I would be displeased if the representation was awful in it, so it's kind of nice to know that that's not the case. But yeah, I think it sounds really interesting. I like the idea that I mean, mind games in a thriller are always good, but when you can throw in the additional thing of the person suffering from chronic pain and they're probably on like strong painkillers and they're more likely to doubt themselves, I think that gives it a really interesting angle, and it's got the potential to be really good. My fourth most anticipated thriller is You Don't Know Me by Imran Manhood. This has won a lot of awards and stuff. I forget which awards, but it's one of those more literary thrillers, I guess, and it's about a unnamed man who has been accused of a crime, and he decides to act as his own defendant, and he goes through these 8 key pieces of evidence that are meant to be convicting him, and he explains what each of them is. Again, it kind of follows that format you can tell I like, where you find out things gradually and it goes through a story bit by bit, and each new piece of evidence reveals something new and adds a new glimpse into what happened. I really like stories like that. The writing style might bother me if it's more literary, because I'm not a fan of writing that's kind of like written to be important. But it sounds really promising, and it has got great reviews, so hopefully this will be a good one. My fifth most anticipated thriller I can almost guarantee people have heard of before, and that's You by Caroline Kepnes. This is now like a Netflix show, so it's blown up even more, but this was already a pretty popular book, and it's about a stalker who starts dating the girl he's stalking, and that's pretty much all I know about it. I've been meaning to read this for like year and a half now. Still haven't read it, but I am excited to read it, and now there's a Netflix show, I get that extra push to read it because I do want to watch the show. I don't want to watch it before I've read it, so this gets glowing reviews everywhere. I hope it's as good as people say it is, but we shall have to see. My sixth most anticipated thriller is In a Cottage in a Wood by Cass Green. This is about a woman who is walking home and she sees a woman about to commit suicide. Before this woman commits suicide, she gives her a key, and then a couple of weeks later our main character finds out that she's inherited this cottage in a forest from the woman who killed herself. So she goes to go live in this house, and a bunch of creepy stuff starts happening. There's like bars on the wall, on the windows of the house, and she basically has to find out what happened to this woman to make her kill herself, I'm guessing. This is a solid premise. I had many customers at work, because we sell this book at work, come up to me and tell me how great this book is and ask if there's anything else we sell by the author. So I've heard a lot of good things. I think Nicole from A Beautiful Chaos of Books really likes this as well. I might be wrong about that, but I'll link her channel down below. I'm sure I've heard her talk about it. And yeah, it has a really cool start, and I mean, I really like the title as well. That's a really impactful title. Then my seventh most anticipated thriller is Black Eyed Susans by Julia Heaberlin. This is like, sounds vaguely like Final Girls in its premise. So it's about a woman who was the sole survivor of a serial killer, and he used to bury his victims under this carpet of flowers, and the flowers are the Black Eyed Susans. And then her testimony convicted this man who's now sentenced to death. He hasn't been killed yet, but he's on his way to being executed. And then one day our main character finds the Black Eyed Susans planted under her window, and she starts to doubt whether the man that she's put in prison is the one who is actually behind it. So she's kind of racing against time to investigate what happened to her before that man gets executed. It sounds really good. The cover for this is gorgeous. It's like a woman, or well, not gorgeous, I guess creepy. It's like a woman with her eyes closed lying under all these flowers. It's really eye-catching. This is another one that I saw at work and I thought sounded interesting. I don't think I've heard anyone talk about this on BookTube. If you've read it, let me know, because I'd like to know what you think. But yeah, it just sounds like a good premise, and maybe I'll like it more than I liked Final Girls, because that was slightly disappointing to me. My eighth most anticipated thriller is The Girlfriend by Michelle Francis. I've heard a lot of people talk about this, and it's got really good reviews on Goodreads. It's like a above 4 average, which for a thriller on Goodreads is good. It's about a woman who is like fairly well off, and she's quite distinguished, and then her 20-year-old son brings home his new girlfriend, and this woman doesn't really get on with the girlfriend. She kind of is suspicious of her. It seems like the girlfriend wants her life, and that's kind of all I know about it. I really like thrillers that are focused on the basic premise, really simple, of two people who are clashing with each other, and you don't really know if it's the main character being paranoid or if it's this other person who's actually messing with them. And this sounds like it's got a lot of good elements in that. I don't know, it's just been a while since I've read that premise done well, and I would love to read a book like that again. My next most anticipated thriller is Dark Heart by Catherine Lee. I've got a couple of books on my TBR with this kind of premise, but this was the one that appealed most to me and that had the highest ratings. So this is about a serial killer died with his last victim still not found, and then a woman gets his heart transplanted into her, and then she starts having like nightmares about what this serial killer did. There's also a detective character involved who's trying to find his last victim, and it said it's about the question and the phenomenon of whether when you receive organs from people you receive more than just that organ. Yeah, that idea itself is really cool. Like I said, it's not particularly original because I have got like 3 or 4 books on my TBR with that exact premise, but this is the one that has like a serial killer aspect, and I like the idea of a woman having nightmares because she's found out that she's got this body part from essentially a horrible, horrible human being. So yeah, I hope this is really good. My final most anticipated thriller is The Serial Killer's Daughter by Lesley Walsh. This is about a girl who finds, I don't know if her father's dead, the blurb actually isn't very clear, but she's looking through her father's things and she finds these photos of 8 women, and one of the photos is of her old best friend who her dad only met like once, and her old best friend died under mysterious circumstances. So she starts investigating. Presumably her father is a serial killer based off the title. So it's about her discovering that, but at the same time there's someone following her. And this is quite a unique concept, I think. I don't think I've read or heard of any other book, there probably is one, but that has the focus on the relative of a serial killer, apart from maybe The Visitors, which was about someone living with a serial killer, but they knew about that, whereas this is like someone discovering that someone they loved is a serial killer, which I think is a really interesting idea. And yeah, the family aspect as well, because I'm pretty sure there's definitely books where it's like a wife discovering that her husband is a serial killer, or she suspects that her husband is a serial killer. But like, I like the angle of it being a daughter, particularly if the father's dead. I don't know if he is dead or not, but if he is dead, then that adds a whole nother layer because she can't actually confront him. But yeah, so that is my top 10 most anticipated thrillers on my TBR list. Do let me know if you've read any of them. Let me know. If you want recommendations for Thrillerathon, I will link my favourite thrillers video down below. They're all spoiler free, so you don't need to worry about that. That's kind of the ones that I've read that I've recommended. Let me know if you're taking part in Thrillerathon, because I love more people to talk about that with when it actually is happening. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give me a thumbs up if you did, it helps me out massively, and I hope to see you next time.